Without structural change, getting rid of Trump isn't going to be enough. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Welcome back. So now it's showing up in the obituaries. People in the throes of agony from losing someone close to them, whether it's, typically an obituary is written by a family member, are writing things like, instead of flowers, donate to a Democrat. Or instead of flowers, tell everyone to vote against Trump and the GOP this fall. It's becoming a national trend. You've probably seen these. I've seen at least a half a dozen of them, published on various message boards and websites where somebody will come across it in their local newspaper, take a picture of it, and then post it or tweet it or Facebook it or whatever it may be. So America is mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, and in our mourning, we are using the traditional vehicle for that, the obituary, increasingly to call out Republicans and Donald Trump. But not everyone is mourning. Billionaire Rupert Murdoch and the multimillionaires that he hires to comment on his Fox network every night, multimillionaires, Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson, they're very happy to hear them talk with the giant tax cuts and the deregulation that Donald Trump has given them. I mean, in exchange for that, they're giving support and publicity to Trump's lies. It's a clear quid pro quo, right? Hannity's worth tens of millions of dollars. I don't know, maybe over $100 million. Carlson, the same. So you got these guys that are worth lots and lots of money. Trump is giving them huge tax cuts. So hey, we love Trump. The extraordinary thing, though, is that Trump's lies about the coronavirus are encouraging older people who watch Murdoch's Fox News. The average age of a Fox News viewer is 71. And these older people believe what they hear and see on Fox and thus go out and take chances. This was pointed out in one of the obituaries that was shared fairly widely across the internet about a week ago. That, in the obituary, they said Dad watched Fox News every night, and so he thought there wasn't a risk, so he went to the store without a mask. And he came back with COVID, and now he's dead. And, this is what happens. I mean, Fox News has been sued over this for wrongful death. And these people take chances, and as a result, they're dying all over the country. And as they die, the billionaires and the giant polluting corporations who have funded the Republican Party since the Reagan Revolution are literally getting rich off the pandemic. The net worth of people in the United States whose net worth is worth over $10 million, that group of people, and it's only a few 100,000 people, has increased by over $1 trillion since the beginning of this year. So when you read about Trump bringing misleading and nonsensical charts and graphs, pieces of his big lie, to his interview with Axios' Jonathan Swan, and then when Jonathan Swan says, but you've got 1,000 people a day dying, and Trump says, oh, but look at our death rates are going down. We're lower than any other country in the world. And Jonathan Swan looks at that and says, wait a minute, you're comparing, deaths to diagnosed cases. And yeah, so far we've got fewer people going into the hospital who die than in some of these other countries that got it earlier on. Why? Well, in part because just in the last month, we've discovered that if you give people steroids, you cut the death rate once they're on a ventilator by about 30%. And, we're getting better at what we're doing, and the other problem, and Swan didn't point this out, obviously Trump didn't give him an opportunity to. He cut up, he stepped on every sentence. It was like a Fox thing. But the other thing is that when a country is in an increasing stage of an epidemic, because the deaths follow about 2 to 3 weeks behind the hospitalizations, and the hospitalizations follow 2 or 3 weeks behind the diagnosed infection, for 5 or 6 weeks, as long as your numbers are going up, you're going to have death rates that seem lower than that 1% that, is the generally used number. We have 4.5 million infections in the United States, if my memory serves me right. It goes up so rapidly. I think we're getting close to 5 million infections in the United States. At 4.5 million, 1%, if we've got a 1% death rate, we should have 400,000 people dead. But we only have 55,000 people dead, which means that we're still in the upswing part of the curve, which means that another 300,000 people are going to die probably within the next 2 months, if our numbers look like anybody else's in the world. Now, we do have good hospitals. We've got an advanced healthcare system, relatively speaking, at least if you can afford it. People are leaving the hospital with literally $1 million bills that they'll never be able to pay, but at least they're alive. And of course, that, like I said, that discovery of this cheap steroid, preventing people from dying was a big deal. But, when Jonathan Swan pointed out to him that you're comparing death rates per case when you really need to be comparing death rates per population. South Korea has a population of 51 million people. We have a population of 340 million. So they're about, 1/6 the size of the United States. The entire country, through this entire process, ever since January 20th, when they diagnosed their first case and we diagnosed our first case, the entire country of South Korea has only had about 300 people die. We've had 155,000 die. Our death rate is insanely worse. So, when Trump says this, and then Jonathan Swan says, but we have 1,000 people a day dying, and Trump says, well, it is what it is. When he talks like that, we have to keep in mind why he would do that, why he would say that, what that thinking is. And first, of course, you've got the fact that Donald Trump doesn't care about average Americans. He doesn't care, frankly, about anybody except himself. But more importantly, neither do the giant corporations and the billionaires who helped put Donald Trump in office and are trying to keep him there through these right-wing organizations that are supporting him. And they're keeping virtually every Republican at every level of government in office all across the country. They're media empires, these billionaires' media empires, and make no mistake, they've got a whole bunch of them. They own the majority of the radio stations in the United States. They've got all kinds of websites. They've got multiple television networks. They're cranking out propaganda on the airwaves and the internet constantly to support Donald Trump and his lies. And meanwhile, the death cult that has become the Trump base, these people are really the saddest victims. And yeah, I get it. You can get pissed off, when they show up in a store and slap around the employee. The one that's going viral right now is a guy who goes into a Burger King and literally reaches across the counter and slaps the face of the employee who's asking him to put on a mask. But these people are victims. They're getting sick, they're dying, and they're victims of this billionaire corporate crusade. And let's keep in mind, Donald Trump is one of these billionaire oligarchs to crush democracy and dismantle the American government. This is what Steve Bannon said Trump was going to do when he came into office: deconstruct the administrative state, take apart the American government, leave it in shambles all over the floor, all over the ground. Let some other country lead the world. And they're the ones whose obituaries, these victims of the Trump, these Trump cult members who believe what they're hearing on right-wing hate radio and Fox News, and then get sick or get their family members sick, and then a grieving family member writes an obituary saying Trump killed my grandpa. These are the people who believed Fox News and Donald Trump. They're victims. Until America again constrains the political power of these giant corporations and the billionaires they produce, we are going to continue to be gaslighted. We're going to be continuing to be forced into work situations that are dangerous, and we're going to continue to die in massive numbers. And the next sociopathic Republican candidate for president, I think it's going to be Tom Cotton, is going to be worse.